Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here, and back with our usual weekly live Cardano focused live stream. Today we're going to look at governance, joined as usual by Paddy and special guest today, Patrick from NMKR. Patrick's been on before, but I'll let you give your own introduction here as well. We were meant to have Rick McCracken here today as well, but he got called away, so I don't think he's going to be able to make it. Maybe before the end, but not too sure at the minute. Paddy, welcome back as usual. You're mute, Paddy.
That's the first time.
That's a good
so not only is Rick dealing with governance of the United States of America, he's also dealing with Cardano. So he's a busy man. Yeah, hi everybody. So governance has been a hot topic for a couple of weeks now. So I'm glad we're going to go over it and skim over it a good bit and talk about some of the contentious topics of what's causing a lot of drama lately. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to get your guys' takes on it. I'm not a big fan of governance because of the drama and the fighting and the arguing and the whole. But I suppose that's politics. Maybe I should have went to university and did politics to be better understanding of some of these things and learning processes and stuff. But yeah, no, I'll not go too deep at the minute. And welcome, Patrick. Welcome. It's glad to have you on, buddy.
Thank you, Paddy. It's cool to have two Patricks here today, and I'm very glad to be here. It's very unfortunate that Rick couldn't make it, because Rick is certainly one of the guys who's been pushing like a lot recently in terms of education about the whole governance topic and the CIP and everything that has been going on. But yeah, jury duty is something which we don't have in Germany, so I have no idea what he's actually doing, but sounds important.
Yeah, and just thinking, it's actually St. Patrick's Day in Ireland here in 2 days' time, so good week to have two Patricks on the channel.
Right.
Ooh, I got my little Shamrock that I got them
Nice
yesterday. Yeah, I got the ones last year, and I tried to see how long I can keep them alive, and usually it doesn't last very long. But I'm going to be committed to this one. I'm going to see if I can keep it for the year. But we'll see.
Right. Before we get into governance then, Patrick, I'm sure most people coming in here will know you from being around Cardano. Do you want to give the high level of yourself, and then we'll jump into governance?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, most people know me from NMaker, which is an NFT infrastructure platform, essentially. So we do like white label NFT minting, white label NFT trading, and secondary sales. And we're really focused on like onboarding people. So my kind of mission is to like bring the next million people to Cardano, because I feel like, we have a lot of brilliant people here building all these amazing foundational layers and governance mechanisms and stuff like that. But if no one is using that, it's kind of useless. So yeah, so I'm just focused on like making the best possible user experience for people who have never touched crypto before and bring them on board.
Nice. In the chat as well, I presume I forgot to check that our audio is okay in the start, but welcome Shahid, King Cardano, 2.9 million ADA, and Alex. Welcome, guys. Appreciate you joining in. Anyone else coming in, do give the video a like or share it out. Help bring more people in. The more people we have, the better discussion, better questions we can get as well. Welcome, Daniel. And yeah, Alex, the world is burning around us. We're thinking maybe next week's topic could be about that, the bigger financial system and impacts on Cardano and stuff like that. So we'll bring that topic up next week.
That's if there's anything left to talk about next week. There'll be no banks, there'll be no crypto, everything will be regulated to death. It'll be it's interesting times though. So yeah, let's see what we can get sorted out for next week. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so governance is a very big topic around Cardano over the last while, and how the future of Cardano will be laid out, or who will decide the future of Cardano, or what gets implemented. So there's a lot of different opinions out there. The biggest, I suppose, SIP we have right now is SIP 1694. Patrick, do you want to give an overview of governance, or why it will be important for something like Cardano and the approaches, I suppose, we have with Cardano?
Sure. I mean, governance is one of these topics which are really crucial, I would say, for a blockchain, because and for any decentralized system, because you need to be able to make changes. I mean, we see with the current blockchains that are out there that, there are some which are unchangeable, like Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin does not have governance. So it's basically impossible to do anything new with Bitcoin. And that's also Bitcoin's strength, because people can trust it and know that, it's been running for 10 years, longer actually, and it basically is never changing. But obviously, having a changeable system is very important if you want to, build a something which is a little bit more than just sending Bitcoin from A to B. So if we look at the second layer of blockchains like Ethereum, you can see, okay, they also don't really have a governance system. The way that governance works there is basically by Vitalik saying, okay, I want to do this, and then everyone just follows him, which is also not great, because everything relies on Vitalik, and it's not very decentralized in like their decision making. So on Cardano, arguably, right now it's the same, because essentially IOHK can decide what they want to do and have like at least access to the majority of the keys, can push new node updates and so on. And that's never been the intention from Charles and everyone involved in IOHK. So the goal is really to take that power away from them and build something where the whole community can come together and decide over these things. And that's actually been so since day one. So Voltaire was always in the roadmap of Cardano, and is like a huge, very important step for Cardano, I think. It's also the thing which drew me to the blockchain. And now we're finally there. And basically what happened is we got this new CIP proposal, or Cardano improvement proposal, from IOHK, which outlines a minimum viable government. So it's not supposed to be a perfect proposal, but it's supposed to be the first step and to be achievable in the next 6 months, which I think is great, because we need to get started with this. And it's very important to give more power to the community and take it away from IOHK. I have nothing against IOHK, but it's not great to have all that power like centralized like that. And and then they released that, and now they're basically looking for all the community feedback that they can get, going to iterate it, and then hopefully release it, and then really decentralize the chain.
I was wondering, and this is a stupid question, just to start off and break the mood for a while, but we have CIP 1694, yeah. Can anybody just create a CIP and define what they believe could be governance?
Yes.
And for example, I could create a CIP and say, I am going to be king of Cardano. I just need enough people to vote for it.
We already have King Cardano in the chat here, so you might be happy with that.
Well, what I'm getting at is that anybody can come up with their own form of governance, and it's going to be down to the community accepting it. The same with the current CIP, it is changing. And what that's bringing me on to is to say, anybody can put proposals into this CIP to change it. Is that possible? Is it open to everybody?
It's pretty open to everybody. We have a standardized CIP process, basically, where we have, CIP editors that have to approve the CIPs to go to the next level and stuff like that. But in the end, CIPs are mostly standards, right? So you can write a CIP and no one is going to follow it, and then the CIP is kind of useless. But in the end, like the way it's supposed to be happen is that the stake pool operators are supposed to do something with this governed proposal. So at some point, IOHK is going to release a version of the node that has this implemented, and then it's the stake pool operator's choice if they want to follow it or not. And that basically means that all the power, even with the new governance system, always relies on the stake pool operators. Like if they say, okay, this is all shit, they just fork the chain and block IOHK and all the governance stuff completely out of it. But that's most likely not going to happen. But instead, we'll figure out a way of governance that works for all of them, and then we have a new node, and then hopefully, we can have like popular votes for these proposals instead of IOHK just pushing them onto everyone.
Gotcha. So I won't be king. Yeah. Okay.
See, we've Pete there as well said about in the last hard fork, we had some version of that with the node operators saying that they weren't ready to move to certain versions, and there was all the catastrophic updates and test nets and everything going around. And an early version of the community getting involved and having a voice and a say, rather than IOG being the ones who decided, yes, it's go and we go. So it was good to see that. And actually, Pete, if you're free and you want to jump on the call here, drop me a DM and I can send you a link to join in, even if you want to come in for part of it, if you have views on governance or anything like that. And welcome everyone else joining in. But that was a good start, I think, to see that. And you say there about the node operators, I suppose, looking over at Bitcoin, it's the Bitcoin miners can decide what happens there if they don't agree with something being proposed. We've seen it a good few times at this point where the chain gets forked and there's a new chain created, Ethereum. I don't know, do Ethereum have a plan? Do they have governance in the roadmap? Or
so Ethereum kind of decided that, or actually not Ethereum decided, but Vitalik decided that on-chain governance is not the way to go. And that's why they do all the governance, basically off-chain. And I think that's one of the biggest flaws of Ethereum, because it just centralizes the power, and it just creates this power vacuum around these like influencers, and with the biggest influencer being Vitalik, of course.
Yeah, and actually just what I said there with the miners, Alex with a good point on it, that it's the pools rather than the actual individual miners. I suppose the miners give power to the pools, and they're the ones then that have the overall say. But on Cardano, so we have CIP 1694 as the initial proposal for this. And long term, I suppose, once this is implemented, all CIPs will then go through whatever governance is there. Is it that it would be, will they still have all the CIP editors and everything before, or how is that process defined?
The CIPs are kind of independent from that, to be honest, because there are certain CIPs like node upgrade stuff and so on that might go through the regular CIP process, but there are other CIPs which are more around standards in the community, like for example the metadata standard for the NFTs. That will still go through the regular CIP process, and then basically I as an NFT minter or like a marketplace and so on, we will decide which CIP we are going to implement or which one we don't implement.
Okay. I suppose, will I bring up the CIP?
Yeah.
Now we're not going to go through every part of it. It's too big to do that, but...
No, we'll be sharing the link and making sure to highlight it. People.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't put it in the description yet, but I'll put it in the description now in a few minutes when someone else is talking, and anyone that wants to check it out after, then you can check it out and come back with questions or anything like that. So this is the CIP that's there at the minute that came from IOG, and there's a few different people mentioned in here. I think Charles had a part in it as well in putting the CIP together. This is actually the updated version. So there was an early version. This is the latest version. I don't know, was this just after the workshop in Colorado? So you were at that yourself, Patrick?
Yes.
And is this version coming out of that, or is it coming out of all the discussions across Twitter as well?
Both, to be honest. I would say the majority of changes come from the workshop, because that was really like a deep discussion with everyone for 2 days. We were just talking about every single aspect of governance, it feels like. But also certainly the community input on social media was taken into account.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some good discussions across Twitter. Lots of times you have arguments across Twitter when it's people have disagreements, but I've seen some arguments, but some fairly good discussions as well to try and help people understand it. On high level, the one actually that I had there probably showing this here. So there's 3 different people that will have a say in this. It's not going to be every individual person has to go on and vote individually themselves on each proposal. We're not going to have all of that on chain for the start anyway. I think, is it mainly due to limitations of the chain, or is there a reasoning behind everyone not going on and voting themselves?
It has multiple reasons. One of the things is, of course, that you want to keep the amount of transactions to a minimum, because if every vote is a transaction on chain, and we have over 1 million active wallets at this point, if we have like a vote a month, that means 1 million transactions a month. And if we have like 10 votes a month, we would have like 10 million transactions. And that's only with the existing wallets. Obviously, not all of them are going to vote for all of those proposals, but it becomes very difficult to scale that. So like I think the consensus is that the long-term solution for voting can only be a sidechain or a layer 2 or something like that to scale it up. But the short-term solution is basically to have these kind of limitations where we say, okay, we have the DReps, and then we can delegate to the DReps, and the DReps can do the voting. And obviously, everyone can become a DRep, right? But there's going to be probably a limit of ADA that you must have in a wallet to just limit that as well, and prevent like DDoS attacks on chain and stuff like that. So there are a few different things to consider.
Yeah, I think I had seen some of the discussions on the scale, and then we need DReps because of the load that could potentially be on it. And I thought instantly, this is perfect layer 2 setup. And it probably, it's time-based, obviously. We might not have that ready. So I guess at the beginning, it could be on the main chain. And one question that I was thinking about, and this is a good chicken and egg story. So we have our constitution, we have our constitutional committee, and then we have our DReps. One thing I was thinking about was the constitution. What comes first, your constitution or your government? Yeah. Do you form your government to write your constitution or create a constitution that everybody can vote on for then your government to enforce? Well, the constitutional committee. So I was sort of conflicted about this recently, and I was worried that if we don't have a constitution which defines the guiding principles, then they can be defined after, and then everybody doesn't have a vote on that. Generally speaking, so whenever the constitution is changed in Ireland, we all get a vote, and everybody gets a vote on it. But then that came to me thinking, we probably don't have the scale to cater for that. So that would mean everybody in Cardano voting on agreeing to a constitution like that. So
it's a good
scenario, we're stuck.
No, and it's a very good question. And that's also one of the things that we talked about at the workshop, and there were a lot of different opinions about this. Like also, should we propose a constitution and then the community basically has to vote for it to be taken into effect, or do we do it the other way around to basically introduce the constitution, and then afterwards a vote has to happen to say if it's legitimate or not? I think it was pretty clear that like the initiation of the very first constitution is the biggest risk to Cardano in the short term, in terms of also attack vectors from outside, because essentially what can happen is if we introduce a constitution and the majority of DReps and like delegated ADA does not agree with the constitution, what happens is that the constitution becomes illegitimate, and then we have to wait for a new constitution to be introduced and voted for, and only after that can we actually do like new node upgrades and stuff like that, new governance actions essentially. So that time frame is the time frame where Cardano is very vulnerable, and that's like a critical point. So it's very important that we get out a constitution that is good enough for the majority of people to say, yes, I like this. We're not gonna vote for its illegitimacy or like against it basically.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that I would like to see it first. I don't expect us to write it. I would expect people who are knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than myself, obviously, to come up with what's got to be in there. Especially people from the Cardano Foundation and IOHK, and Charles himself. These guys, they know the system inside out. They should be able to define the beginning constitution as it's kind of like the guardrails in bowling. I'm terrible at bowling, and I generally put the guardrails up. So and people laugh, but it's really bad. So, but these types of things are needed, sometimes. And then once you get going and people are able to deal with things themselves, then we could make changes. That's the way that I would envisage it. I don't know if it's going to go that way, but that's the way that I would sort of see this going.
Yeah, I think that makes sense in that, like you mentioned, Ireland, and we have votes on any changes to it, but someone had to write it initially. So there was an initial constitution put in place. And like Pete saying there, let the experts, and what you just said as well, let the experts put the first version in there. And then that's what governance is for. It's for changing everything. It'll be for changing the constitution, changing Cardano. Any changes in the future can be changed by that. And like we have the current CIP, the constitution can be done by the CIP process, I would say, as well. And like the iterations that we're having now, where there's a very wide group of people that are having their say in what this CIP should be, and the same should or could be done for the initial constitution as well. And when you look at what's going on with regulation around the world and potential regulation coming in the next few years, having the distributed governance can only be a good thing for when governments or entities are looking at the individual cryptos to decide which ones might be securities or which have different meanings, who has control of them. And you don't want any one central entity to have that. So I think that has been a really big push for governance. I know another one I'd like to see focus on is scalability of Cardano, but then people have said that, or Charles himself has said that things like input endorsers are going to have such a big impact on how Cardano is set up now. We need governance to be able to vote that in. So just on DReps then, I see Gabe was asking there, what was this? It got asked for DReps not to spam the network, or it could be a different reason. Hear this. I'm not sure what point that was about, but maybe back on why DReps over everyone. We kind of talked about that on just to minimize the number of transactions on the network. And DReps, I suppose we don't really want to look at the current government structures and politics and how we have it, but these are essentially politicians will be DReps, where they're voted in by the community. For voting in DReps, do we know yet? Will it be done on the number of 80 you hold? And it's going to be the top, is 180 equal to one vote for a DRep?
Yes. I mean, it's going to work very simple, very, what do you call it, as like the staking system is yeah, like the staking system. Sorry, I'm kind of missing my English words here. So it's gonna be like that essentially, that you can delegate your votes to another person, or you can delegate them to yourself and become DRep yourself, and then essentially say, okay, I'm gonna vote for myself. So I really don't think that there's any other reason for except scalability right now. I do think it's a very smart system, because I personally think it makes a lot of sense for me to maybe delegate my voting power to someone who has more time to spend with this system and more time to think about like parameter changes and stuff like that. And I think most people don't really want to read through all the SIPs and read through all the proposals and stuff like that. So it's a smart way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, like people will have trusted. I know when something technical comes up, there's certain people I always go looking for within the community to try and get their viewpoint on it. So it'd be the same with DReps. There'd be people you trust that would have either similar views as you, or someone who understands a lot more about what's good for Cardano in the long term, and won't be just trying to vote in something that benefits them or benefits their entity short term. And I know some people have an issue with whales within ADA. I see this one here just made me think of it. This comment was about if it's globally accepted, large organizations become whales, what's to stop them controlling it? And right now, there isn't really much to do that. And unless we had complete on-chain verification, like every wallet had a DID that identified everyone had to have an ID on-chain to vote, that's the only other alternative that I can think of than 1 ADA equals one vote. And ADA is the governance token of Cardano. So it kind of has to be, at the minute anyway, 1 ADA equals one vote. Unless you think different.
I have a worry on the DReps and the whole idea of it. So, and it's to do with being able to gather more and more control over time. Let's take, for example, if we have a very reputable member of the Cardano community, I don't know, we can pick anyone, someone who's quite famous, but what they could do is build up enough representation, and you guys can correct me if there's any way to stop this. They can build up enough representation where their vote is enough to sway near enough any proposal that comes in. Is there thought going into limiting the power of a single DRep, and can that one person not become, the overlord of Cardano to do whatever they want and vote on whatever they want? Unlikely, but people can build up power, and it's kind of like the mining pools in Ethereum. They were quite powerful for quite a while. So, and it worries me, and it's something that does happen, in general, normal politics in the world. And generally speaking, what we are building is a democracy, a decentralized democracy. There's nothing like it from a government structure in the world. Maybe in terms of voting and voting on everything, Switzerland, you say, could probably be the closest sort of idea of making sure that everybody votes on everything that the country is deciding. But my worry is, people taking over, because DReps is a bit like the American system, where it's what do you call it? Representative democracy. It's a person takes over that part of the country, as then they vote for what they believe that they're the people who trust them to do. And it's like that. I worry about that. It's not that I'm saying I don't like the US system. I just worry about someone garnishing too much control. And how do we circumvent that?
Don't you think that, if the community votes for a dictator, that it's the community's fault and let them? Like, that's kind of my position. If the community decides to fuck up, like, that's it. Like, it's their decision.
It would be something to look back on in history to see the evolution of humans and what they naturally do. Then it could be something on a documentary in 100 years.
True. Yeah, very true.
They had a chance to create a totally decentralized democracy, and look what they did. They screwed it up again.
They voted for Justin Bieber. Yeah. Imagine Elon Musk coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to be a DRep, and then everyone just delegates to him, and he sells all his ADA and clones Doge or something.
See, one thing that I had thought about was I was doing some research throughout the week when we were coming up to this, and I was looking at the birthplace of democracy, would you say, in Athens around 500 BC, and in one part of their democracy they had, hopefully I can say it right, the Boule, Boule, and there was 500 citizens, predominantly men, I think most of the time, were elected to run that part of the government for a year. And I thought to myself, could something like this be part of this whole DRep sort of management process? But then I thought, who would actually govern that selection? Then that might get corrupted, and then you have people selecting the people who they want to get selected. So it led me down a massive rabbit hole, and I thought, governance is really hard to solve.
It is
going on.
It really is.
1,500 years, and we still haven't got it right. So, yeah.
But that's actually, I think that's an interesting point, and that's also one thing we discussed about, because like you could also say, okay, we have a certain amount of DReps, like everyone can become a DRep, but then a random algorithm just picks like a random subset of DReps to vote on one proposal to make sure that it's kind of unbiased. And it's an interesting idea, and it could actually work a lot better than any existing governance, because like just like you have like statistics for that. If you just pick like random people from the crowd, that they will on average make better decisions than if you just choose like the most qualified leaders.
Yeah, you can see some of the comments there. Pete saying about Australia has had terrible politicians. I'd say every country in the world has voted in terrible politicians at some stage, but generally it turns around on the next election. And unfortunately, our governance system is going to be based kind of on what governments do now. I don't know if that's the best model to run it on. And you have your representatives up there, but right now there probably isn't many better ways than that. You can see mentions here of other other politicians that were put into office. Alex here saying about Thoreau in and seeing what happened there.
As a German, I think I get the trophy for that, for bad politicians.
Yeah, probably not. We won't go that far back. Then, yeah, Trump as well. He's another one. Although some people will argue he done some good stuff, done some stupid stuff as well. What else did I miss there? Yeah, there was just talk about, just you mentioned on DReps. So when DReps are voted in, do DReps have one vote, or is their vote based on how much ADA voted for them to be a DRep?
It's based on how much ADA they have.
So how much ADA they have?
Not they have, but they have plus is delegated to them. Or actually just is delegated to them if you want to be technical, because they delegate to themselves. And then other people can delegate to them as well. It's very similar to the stake pool model. It's literally the same thing, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I suppose it's potential for issues there if someone does get a lot of votes, or will we have, like we have the K parameter, there has to be a certain amount of pools that you get your saturation level. Could we look at a model like that for DReps as well, that they could only have a certain amount of power so that they can't influence a vote, or it takes a certain amount of them to influence a vote in one way?
Almost impossible to actually do, though. That's kind of the problem. Like, how do you know that it's not just one guy having two wallets?
Yeah. Well, if they're a DRep, though, is it not? They're voted in. It's one DRep. It's not a wallet. It's an individual, isn't it?
It is. But I mean, we already see with the multi-stake pool operators that even though it's pretty clear that you're not really supposed to run multiple stake pool operators if you have the audience, like a lot of people still do. And I think it would be the same with the DReps. If you're a popular guy and you fill out your first DRep wallet, basically, then and say, okay, look, I'm filled, delegate to my second one, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose Beats one here was the conversations around voting going through the KYC process. Potentially your DReps could be on that, bring in something like a Tala Prism or something else where they have to have there's no right solution. I'm just speaking out loud here as well.
I mean, this is also go ahead, Paddy.
No, I was just going to say to Paul, we're building the perfect dictatorship system. And allowing someone to take over. I'm joking. I'm I'm overthinking the worst possible scenarios, obviously. But what Patrick said is correct. It's going to be a self-governing sort of system, and there's no one going to be sitting in charge to say, oh, this guy has he's a DRep, but he has 10 wallets, or he has 10. People can delegate their voting to any of his wallets. He can continue to grow and grow. I don't think you could have a process in there that could scale up, because there's no way of controlling who this guy is and the amount of wallets he owns for that process.
Exactly. And it's with KYC, I do think like that the overall consensus in the community and also at IOHK and everywhere where we've been talking about this was also that we do need an identity system connected to voting long term. But right now it's almost undoable, because if you think about KYC and if you think about decentralized identities, you could say, okay, only one person can be a DRep at a time or something like that, and not have these multiple wallets and have a staked limit, basically. But the problem is, who controls the KYC, right? So you're only pushing the power away from the edges to someone else, and you're centralizing it with the KYC providers, even if it's decentralized. If I do my KYC through a Tala Prism, or I do it through, I don't know, IMX is still doing the KYC and verifying me, basically, and then creating a DID, and then, other people can say, okay, this is a person, and I trust it because I trust IMX, but it's not 100% secure. And the only way that it's currently working is by basically creating redundancy. So you're supposed to have like multiple KYC providers in your DID. Say I'm X and Artella Prism and multiple others. And then because of this redundancy, people trust you. So we don't have a perfect system for that. And unless we have a perfect system like that, it's like a really, really big danger. And also, maybe last point, sorry, I'm talking a lot today, but
you're fine.
If you kind of think about it, so if you kind of think about it, who do you really want to have power over Cardano in the short term? Probably the people who have the most ADA, because their incentive of keeping the chain alive and pushing it forward is the highest. It's a lot higher than if I have only one ADA, for example. So it doesn't make sense, at least at the beginning, to give everyone the same amount of votes. But long term, the more people Cardano use, the more this changes. And then at some point, you kind of want everyone to have one vote, because we want to have a decentralized democracy and not, have the rich rule or everything.
No, I think you're correct. I think, and the key point there, what I definitely agree with is that people with a lot of data will definitely want to make sure that what is going through governance is good for Cardano. And I would definitely trust people. I'm not saying that you won't have bad actors who will try and circumvent that. That's likely going to happen as well. But I would easily say the vast majority of people with substantial data holdings will only be doing it for the beneficial reasons. I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, I agree on that side as well. It's like if someone has a massive bag of ADA, then they're not going to want to damage Cardano overall, because it's going to have a serious impact on themselves. And just this about, yeah, it's possible for a big whale to vote themselves in, but I suppose then it's up to people within the community, reputable people within the community, to try and become DReps as well, and have enough of people up there that get enough of votes that can counteract anything else that might be out there, and have a lot of the good actors in the system. Because within Cardano, I think probably more than a lot of other chains, we have a lot of people that are interested in helping push the channel or push Cardano in the right direction, and long term are really not just invested, but they're vested in terms of they want to see it succeed for what Cardano started out to do. So I think they do have a big advantage in that side, and it's up to us to help people like that get empowered to be able to vote for the right direction. See what else I have. So P degrees just on the KYC and centralization, as well as costing a fortune to run.
So I might take the role of Rick McCracken now, and you can guys pretend that I'm Rick for a minute. So we were going to show some of these polls that Rick was doing. So we'll maybe have to get him back on to do his presentation, but we can at least go through his polls.
Just for anyone else joining late, Rick was unable to make it, but we will have Rick back on again soon.
Let me just present my screen. They're interesting. They were interesting polls. I really liked it.
Brought some stuff to light that people mightn't have actually known within the community, different ways that the treasury and that works as well. I've seen there was a decent few people who were surprised at some of how it worked. Just on this, should early votes, just before we go into the next one, carry more weight than later votes? I don't know if that means in terms of when a proposal comes up, or if it's how long you hold the ADA, or I don't know if you have a different interpretation on it.
I don't think it would. I don't know why it should, I guess, would be my sort of rebuttal to that. I don't see a reason why
it doesn't really make sense if you have a new proposal coming out. Like there's no real point to it. The proposal is probably going to run for a few epochs. Like imagine it runs for 10 days. And then there's no point to it to have more votes at the first day or at the 10th day. But I guess he's more getting around the idea of, I don't know, if you vote like at the beginning of the governance phase in general, that it should count more. But mathematically, it doesn't change anything if the votes don't count more later on, because it's still a fixed period of time.
Yeah. All right. What have we got for us, Paddy?
Yeah, so it was the first one. I thought it was an interesting idea. So there's been a lot of contention around, selection of DReps, and the possibility that you have it's mandatory to select the DRep. And if you don't select the DRep, what happens? Maybe your rewards will be held, maybe they won't. Or there was loads and loads of discussions. And one poll that Rick put up was that, if you don't select the DRep, what should happen? Should it default to an SPO? Should it default to abstain? It doesn't count at all. And, there could be other options out there. But I thought it was interesting to see, and it did get a good amount of votes, 511, which made me sort of want to go into it. It's that default to abstain, which I sort of agree with, and I'd like to get your guys' opinion, and everybody else who's listening, what you think should happen. If I'm joining new to Cardano, I open my wallet, I create a new wallet, what should automatically happen with my ADA? Should it be automatically counted to the SPO that I select, abstaining, or not counted at all? So let us know. But for me, I'm of the side of, it's totally abstaining. And I'm a big believer in, I'm here to secure the network. And I think governance and securing the network is two different things. And it's just the way that I see it. And if I want to put my ADA and stake it and leave it and not worry about it, and I know that I'm securing the network, that should be okay for me to do. And the other side of it is that I worry, if I did give my ADA voting to a DRep, I might have to check that and maintain it all the time. Is this guy voting the right way that I want him to vote? Could I be annoyed with that? But, and there people will say, well, you should be, you should be involved in blah, blah. But for me, the point comes back to, my main role is to secure the network, not govern it. And I like to keep them sort of separate. But you guys can let me know what you think.
For me, as was default, probably should be to abstain. But when someone is delegating or staking their ADA, it could be a two-part process where they have the option to make the SPO their DRep, but you also have to decide that, you just mentioned it there, you want to secure the network. Maybe you don't want to get involved in the politics of voting on the network as well. So maybe there's lots of SPOs out there that don't want that, power or pressure or whatever way you want to put it. There might be people that just want to be there to support the network in terms of security. So to abstain is probably the one that it should start with. And then you put it to the overall, put it in as a proposal then and let people vote on it, whether it should be to the SPO or to whatever DRep that they want to when they're delegating, because some people will delegate and it could be 2 years' time before they look at their wallet again. They just want to come in, they hold custody themselves, they delegate, and they walk off. So like you said there, maybe they have delegated to a bad actor that isn't someone who should have the power to vote, but if it's a big wallet has voted for them and walked away for 1 or 2 years, just it's a long-term deal for them, and it's because of their wallet that someone has power. There's no way to really overturn that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
I'm actually not for abstain. I'm for vote shouldn't count at all, because imagine you will have certain thresholds for the proposals to go through. Like, for example, 50% of all the eligible ADA has to be in favor of the proposal for it to go through. And if you say, okay, all the eligible ADA is basically abstain, no, and yes, then it becomes very difficult, that threshold. But if you say, okay, all the eligible ADA is only yes and no and abstain and everything, so the same thing, but
yeah,
the people who don't delegate to someone will not be counted in that, then it's easier to reach the threshold,
Is there
That's actually a good point. Sorry.
Is it a 50+1 is going to be the general threshold?
It's so we had a whole session on thresholds actually at the workshop, so it's very difficult. There will be different thresholds for different things, and it's not really set in stone yet, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I guess Brexit was a good example of 50+1, and maybe a bit more, was it? For something that's probably not, that need maybe a bigger threshold.
You have a bigger threshold right now, for example, for the stake pools. Like if all the stake pools, if you were waiting only for 51%, then we would have hard forks a lot quicker. And then like half of the network would not follow the hard fork because they're not upgraded yet. So I don't know what percentage it is, but like 70 or so.
Well, you're making me think, Patrick. So that would mean my idea of abstaining would be detrimental. And I don't want to be detrimental. I just don't want to be involved. So doesn't count at all is I probably sway to more towards that then. So do you understand what I mean? So I am here to just secure, but I don't want to stop or impact governance either.
Yeah, that's kind of the question. You know, I don't know what the answer is. Like, because if you is an abstain vote basically a vote against the current governance system, against the current constitution?
Sometimes it can be, yeah.
Kind of, right? Because you're actively hindering the governance process in a way, depending on how it's defined, of course. But
yeah, I suppose for me, I was thinking that abstain was just you didn't want to be part of it. I wasn't thinking it could actually have an impact on the vote not being able to pass because it would take up a percentage. So yeah, I suppose does not count to be where I would go on that one. And it does bring up the question then of people coming in with abstain. Why would people abstain from votes if they're going to go in and vote at all? Why would they abstain? Is it that they don't agree with the whole process, or is it that they don't agree with that, but they don't want to make a call on that particular vote? It's an interesting one. Will the votes always be yes, no, and abstain, or will it be, say, something like the K parameter? So people come in and they vote on, could you have 4 options where people vote on 1,500, 750, or whatever it is, or will it always be a yes or a no on a specific SIP?
I would argue it's probably only going to be a yes or a no.
Yeah.
Okay. So all the
or like I wouldn't even argue. I know it's going to be only a yes or a no.
Okay, so it's kind of the SIP. All the details are in the SIP, and then you're voting yes or no on that SIP.
It's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily has to do anything with the SIPs. Like it's a proposal is not a SIP, or a voting proposal does not have to be a SIP, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's similar, most likely. But yeah.
Okay.
But that one's going to be, just to tie this one off, I think this is a problem. It's probably the easiest way to describe it, that I don't have the answer to. But this is going to be interesting to see what actually comes out for this, and what's going to be the outcome of how this gets handled. Yeah, it's something that you could have as a proposal in itself. You know what I mean? To have a vote to say how this works. You know, there's like votes for making the votes work.
And you kind of have it in a proposal, because if we say that, like, if you say you abstain and you or you default no, I don't know if that's going to be abstain or just vote no on everything or whatever. You're saying, okay, I do not recognize this government. I do not recognize this system of governance. And then if enough people do that, we are forced to write a new constitution, write a new rule set, and then are forced to propose that, and then are forced for the majority of people to say yes to this before we can do any changes, you know? So it's like constantly on vote, basically.
Yeah, and then you get nowhere. You get no improvements or no progress forward at all.
And that's the difficulty with like the beginning phase, because it's not going to happen. Realistically, it's probably not going to happen like a year or two in. But right at the beginning, it could happen. If like we have a really shitty constitution and everyone says this is shitty, we're not going to vote for this, and we all say no.
Yeah,
like that's why people are afraid of the first voting period, basically.
Alex says here about should staking rewards be slashed if we abstain from voting? I don't think they should. I think staking rewards, there's another discussion going around the community whether you need to have voted in order to claim your staking rewards as well. I've seen that one going around, and people on both sides of it. Some people saying, yes, it will encourage more participation. And then others saying that, no, you don't bring your staking rewards into it, that the staking rewards are for voting on who you want to secure the network and not governance. Actually, Patrick, we're going up 10 minutes to the hour. I forgot to ask you on time what your time is like.
I'm free. It's late in Germany, so I have nothing else to do. So.
Okay, we're coming up to 10 o'clock here in Ireland. You're an hour ahead then, are you?
Exactly.
Okay. So we'll go a little bit over the hour then, if that's okay with you. I think there's still a few different topics. Paddy has a few polls there probably to talk about. What's your opinion actually on slashing?
Mine or Paddy's?
Both should reward
that comes in the Rick second poll to an extent. Where
okay, we can wait till the poll then if you want.
Yeah. So I'll bring it up here. So it's not slashing, but you could say slashing is probably another option. It's more you're unable to withdraw your staking rewards.
Yeah, that's what I actually on this one. 56 says that he would vote to default to the SPO. Take it easy, Pete. We'll have to get you on some weddings tonight as well that suits yourself. I know the time, it's very early out in Australia. Just checking the comments to see if I've missed anything else on this poll before we go to the next one, but I don't think I have. I think the other ones are related to this, so you can go ahead with this one.
Yeah. So the second one that Rick had up was that if you don't participate, if you don't delegate your ADA to a DRep, should your staking rewards be withheld from you until you do so? Now, I think it was a resounding outcome on this, if people thought it was a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea, and I also think slashing would be a terrible idea. But I also know there's a problem, and Patrick highlighted it earlier. It's participation and meeting thresholds are big problems. And trying to make sure that we have a very good participation to meet a threshold is important. You don't want something to be going for a vote and not enough people, vote for it. It could be very detrimental. And then if it loses, it might look bad. And it could be, it's something like if the government doesn't pass a vote, does the government even in control sort of thing, is there no confidence is probably the best way for me to term that. So I think, no, don't do this. And it comes back to my original line in the last poll is, I just want to stake, I just want to stake and leave it there, and I'm securing the network. My vote shouldn't count towards for or against anything. And if everybody wants to go off and do government, I'm happy enough what everybody wants to decide. This is just an example of me playing this type of person, but you know what I mean? I don't envisage withdrawing or slashing being good ideas. And you can imagine, how the general crypto Twitter would see this. We've always been massive advocates of not locking sort of anything, and slashing is something that we definitely have slated other chains for. So I don't think that would go down very well. I'd say other chains would probably like us to say that, but I don't think it would go very well. What do you guys think?
I tend to agree. Also, I think, Cardano has a history of positive reinforcement in a way, and not punishing people for anything. So I would try to make all incentives towards voting more positive instead of trying to take something away.
Yeah, there's the other side about should people be incentivized for voting for a DRep as well. I've seen discussions about that going around. I wouldn't be in favor of slashing, withdrawing staking rewards. I think you cause more unrest doing that down the line. If you want to look at something like that, let the community vote on that later on. But I don't think that should be even considered in the early versions of this. But in something like down the line, maybe you can look at it, but it caused way too much controversy, I think, at the beginning. But DReps being incentivized, and people who vote for DReps, should you be incentivized to vote, like on Catalyst, where there was talk of Catalyst voting, maybe not having rewards going forward or changing that as well. But should people be incentivized to vote for DReps to try and encourage more people to get involved?
Maybe.
I'm conflicted on it. I am conflicted on it. If you're interested, the way that I see it is, I'm interested in Cardano. I'm interested in everything going on. I'll likely get involved in the discussions that go on in and around governance topics that come up in the future. I will vote out of my own interests and the interests of maybe anybody that I might represent, and get their opinion. I don't think I would need incentivized to vote on something that is going to be beneficial for us all. So I don't know, but the other side, I see the other side of it, where it could be, and I don't know how much time it's going to take for DReps to work on something. If it's a full-time job or a half job, if you want to call it, they might need some form of incentive for doing that. Nobody should have to do anything for free, I guess, and you probably don't get as good a quality of people if it's for free. So I am conflicted. I'm unsure. I don't know what's the best approach.
Yeah, I suppose on me, I'd agree on that I think there's far better ways to spend the ADA that sits in the treasury than pay people to vote for DReps. On DReps being compensated, I think if there's going to be a decent amount of work there and you want quality people there, there's definitely a case for some incentivization for DReps to get involved in the system. But in terms of the amount of ADA you would need to pay to people to incentivize them to vote for DReps, then to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're only paying a small amount, then people aren't really going to be interested in that. And I would far rather pay a developer to work on some scaling solution for Cardano or some new dApps for Cardano. I'd rather pay them type of people than pay people to vote for a representative to get involved in the voting process. Like you said, the people who are interested in driving the future of where Cardano is going will get involved anyway. So if we can have extra funds to pay the people on the outside of that, then I think that's better for the long-term future. So I don't know if I've missed anything. We've kind of, if you see anything in the comments I've missed, let me know. Will there be election debates, etc.? I suppose
Sure.
that'll be up. Yeah,
we will have everything. That's the thing. Like, we will have exactly as much as we want to have. That's kind of all in the hands of the community. And I can see a future where you here on this channel will have different DReps, talking about different ideas and why you should delegate to them and stuff like that. And it's going to become, like the US elections. And then in the end, we just have Trump and no, I hope not Trump and Biden. But yeah, no, I think actually that it's very crucial for us to set the right standards early on, because if we go out and we have like this new amazing voting system and we just let it run wild and run freely, it's very likely that we will have like governance parties very quickly. It's very likely that we will have a very toxic community. It's also impossible to prevent something like saying, okay, if you vote for my proposal, I'm going to airdrop you tokens and paying for votes and stuff like that. That's very likely to happen, I would say. So what we need to do as a community is we need to start and figure out, okay, how can we make it civilized? How can we actually inform people about what they're voting on, who the DReps are, what their opinion is, and so on, in a better way that's currently happening with mass media and the US election and stuff. So I think there's a huge opportunity for building platforms like that, and I always have this example because I kind of want to build that myself if I have time. But in Germany, we have a platform which is called, it's basically Member of Congress Watch, just in German, of course. And you go there and then you can see, okay, this member of Congress and what he voted for and what his opinions are. And you can even ask him questions, and the members of Congress can log in there and basically answer those questions and stuff like that. And I think it's brilliant because it's the most amazing tool to actually like look at these things in an objective way without being, swallowed by media. And if we build something like this for Cardano from the get-go, and that becomes the standard for people to go to and say, okay, I'm going to take my information from there instead of like just a hate thread on Twitter, it's very, very valuable, I would say.
Yeah, I think debates and everything like that, I'm sure probably will have different debates ongoing here to highlight DReps that are out there trying to get attention at when this is implemented. And I'd definitely be open to that, to giving people some airtime to say what their beliefs are in where things should go, and then let people decide, because that, to me, that will be part of governance as well. Like, help people do the research into the DReps that they will be voting for, and then let them make the decisions on where they go. I see here some comment, I missed it there. Oh yeah, should there be lobbying, ability to buy votes and buy higher weight votes, and who knows where it's going to go. And look, I think this comes down to the DReps that get voted in as well. How transparent, honest will they be? Will they be open to taking brown paper envelopes or Monero transactions to get the vote for whoever's paying for it? And this will all have to be taken into account. And it does come back to the community at the end of the day. It will be the community will be voting in their representatives. And like we talked about earlier on, that it can be changed. Like political parties, every country has had bad actors voted into power, and generally it does change over time. So it'll be like that with DReps. We will get some brilliant people in. We'll get some people in there that mightn't have the chain's best interests at heart. So it'll be up to the community to rotate them votes and get people in that they trust. There was actually one comment I missed, was about, I can't find it now. Oh yeah, this one here by Alex. Should the weight of the ADA delegated to DReps decay over time? 2% per month or something like that. I don't know. Your thoughts?
I think it's a very bad idea because like you're getting punished for participating in governance, which is, I don't know. I don't really see the point in that. You kind of want to achieve the opposite.
Yeah, I don't. It would be bad, I guess. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I suppose this was a while ago on our chat, so this might have come up when we were talking about people who delegate for 1 year or 2 years and in around the SPO time. So I think that was in around there. And if we did have something like that where it defaulted to a certain party, then I do see the value in having a decay over time, that it has to be renewed, that you have to renew that your vote is still with that person, or it starts to go down.
I think all ideas, and even this one, they're valid. There's no, I don't think there's any problem with discussing these things, because the more ideas that are thrown out there as this thing gets established, the likelihood we are to come up with something that might work. And the more things that are thrown out there and the more people involved, we're going to cover more of the problems that could arise. Because first of all, it hasn't been done. Yeah. And so we don't really know to this level or this scale. So people recommending everything is something to look at, is one thing I would say. It is interesting though, isn't it? It's a massive problem. And I do worry about it. Like, I know when you guys were chatting about different things there, and I was thinking to myself, if there's a vote coming up, and not to go into price or all of that stuff, but things like this could massively be impacting price on certain things. And I remember a time in Ethereum when they were trying to get the miners to agree to some things in the past, and there was talks of forks, talks of all these things, and it gets hyped up to such madness that it's going to split and all this. I can see the crypto Twitter media doing the exact same thing whenever we're going to be doing these things, and it's worrying me. It is worrying me. It is a bit, it's dramatic, isn't it?
It is. I imagine a vote coming up saying, okay, let's burn the whole treasury. like for real, if we put it up for a vote for the whole Cardano community right now,
there you go.
How many people would be up for that? I think a lot of people would be up for that because they just want to see the Cardano price rise, right? And they might not be thinking about it long term. They don't really care about maybe the long term evolution of Cardano. They just want to make a quick buck, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff can happen, and
do you know who would be interested in that? Do you know the guy you said earlier, the guy with the big bag, who's interested in making sure Cardano succeeds?
Exactly.
He's going to want to burn the whole treasury. So it's so hard to.
Luckily for us, that guy is Charles, so I don't think he's going to be doing that. But Alex actually just clarified. So you would, thank you. You would be punished for not participating. You would have to confirm your delegation every epoch. That's kind of I get it now. You're kind of incentivizing people to change their delegation, or at least think about their delegation regularly to have it count something, which kind of makes sense, makes more sense than what I thought earlier.
Yeah, burning the treasury. I've seen that post by Rick as well, and got a decent response to it. So it's interesting to see there was still 18% said yes, and if that one did come up for a vote, it would be interesting to see if that was on chain and how that vote actually went, whether people would vote for it. That's one I think there would definitely need to be a lot of education there on the reasons for having the treasury. And another thing that came up that a lot of people didn't actually realize was that 20% of what comes out of the treasury goes into, or not out of the treasury, out of the every epoch where there is the funds are taken out. It's not the treasury. And when I done a video on this before, I think I messed up the terms of treasury. And there's another one, the original wallet that has the ADA sitting in it that distributes at every epoch. There is, I think, 0.3% of an A, or 0.3% is taken out of that every epoch, combined with the transaction fees from the network as well. And 20% of that goes into the treasury then, which is what Catalyst takes from, and 80% goes to staking rewards. So there's a lot of people didn't realize that there was 20% going to the treasury every epoch. So I can see votes in around that as well to change the weighting on that and how much actually goes to the treasury versus goes to staking rewards. Because currently with transaction fees being so low and the number of transactions being low, then staking rewards are going down every epoch. So things like that could cause controversy and people with mixed opinions on what they want. Do they want to look at the long term for Cardano or look at the short term and what lands in their own pocket?
No, that is true, Paul. And I worry about that. Crypto, and not to say this naively, but a lot of people are in crypto for investment. And if there is going to be proposals that are likely going to make their ADA more valuable, I don't mean to say this and to insult anybody, but it's likely that those votes might pass in that way. Who knows? It could go the other way. I hope not. I like to think people will seek the long-term sort of view on these things.
Yeah. Look, there's nothing wrong with wanting the price to go up. Look, I'm sure all of us want the price of ADA to go up, and it's part of being in crypto, but you want to see the network succeed, and it's kind of about the bigger picture of showing people that the network succeeding can increase the price long term as well, and that will be what can sustain higher prices. Like there's lots of things that can come in and can push it up for a week or a few days or a month or whatever, but if you want the long term sustained way, then the network has to be able to grow and grow in the proper way. But have we anything else, Paddy, on the?
No, they were just some of the good little polls that Rick had, and I know he had a lot more plans. And I'm not as good as him at going into the governance stuff, so I apologize in advance. And hopefully, we can get him back on to go through some of his things. He's definitely he's delving deep into it. I think I just had a couple of questions just to round us off, and I'd like everybody anywhere who wants to get involved in these. And my and this is something that we probably have to sell to people, is to understand, the benefits of governance. Yeah. And I can give my spiel and I can say what I think, but nobody really cares what I think. I'd like to know what you guys think will be the benefits of it. And if anybody has in the comments wants to throw a comment in on what they think will be the benefits. Paul, you can go first.
So the benefits on having governance.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's better to have more than one voice being the driver of where Cardano is going long term. I think for a long time, IOG was the deciding factor in what happened and where the development went. And I think it was only when we got smart contracts and dApps came in and started to look at it, or teams came in trying to build apps and realized that what was released wasn't the type of stuff that they needed. And a lot of that only really came in, well, not the Valentine hard fork, the one before that. That's when a lot of the stuff that was really needed for dApps to start building more complex stuff, it came then. So we need more voices in there, and we need more people to be able to drive where the chain is going to go. So I think for the overall development of Cardano, and to allow more and more people build on it and have what they need, then that's where governance comes into it. And even the regulation side, I think it's very important to not be seen as one entity is driving where the chain goes, because then it's very easy for that one entity to be targeted from the outside world. And this isn't about doing anything illegal or outside of the way things are going, but when they do start targeting more and more cryptos, then the ones that are actually decentralized, not the ones that say they're decentralized, but the ones that actually are and are actually working towards proper governance, I think will stand a far better chance.
Yeah, definitely. And Patrick, what way do you see it?
I mean, I kind of see it like Paul, obviously. Also in general, I care about decentralization because, it's important to, take away the power from a few people in the world and distribute it to a lot of people. Yeah. At least in some areas, at least on the foundational layer. And you can't do that if governance is centralized. It simply doesn't work like that. You need to decentralize governance. So for me, it's not really a question about, okay, why do I care about governance? It's more a question about why do I care about decentralization in general.
One question then I would ask you guys, and it'll be close to wrapping up and not hold you on much further. And then Paul, you can go through some of the comments. Do you think, and it's two parts, and you can say yes or no and give very short answers if you want. Do you think Cardano is ready for this, for governance? And have you thought about whether we should do maybe smaller steps rather than big bang? Here is now a decentralized governance system. Go mad. So Patrick, you can go first to that.
It's kind of a smaller step because it's supposed to be a minimum viable government, but I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think we're at a stage right now where it's a very crucial time for Cardano. Mm-hmm. Cardano needs to decouple itself from IOHK, needs to be more decentralized to be able to grow, needs to open up their treasury so that companies on Cardano can fund themselves, which is a huge problem right now. Mm-hmm. And it's the one event, in my opinion, that will determine Cardano's future. If we fuck it up, Cardano is done. If we don't fuck it up, Cardano can become the greatest blockchain ever made. And it's I don't know. It's a risk worth taking, but also I see the difficulties that we will have, and the reality right now is like that startups on Cardano are dying left and right. Everyone is talking about going cross-chain. It's very difficult. Like basically, almost zero of the startups on Cardano actually have good funding available to them because there are not that many options specific for this chain, and everything else is kind of anti-Cardano to some degree. So we need to make something happen. It's necessary, and this could be the event that sets Cardano apart from the other chains. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
That's a good topic for another time. Using the treasury for other options. But I like your tagline, governance. Let's not fuck it up. That should work. And Paul, what do you reckon?
So was it?
It was
original question. Was it? Are we ready for governance, or?
Yeah, it was basically, do you think Cardano is ready for governance? And do you think we should go for this? What's happening, or should it be maybe smaller steps, or is that just not going to happen and that will be filled of ridiculousness? Let's just go for it.
Yeah, I think we're ready for it. And to a degree, I would say what's coming out now is taking it in smaller steps to a degree, and that how the process is going to go for this one. Yes, it's a big change to where we are, but I think the whole governance process is going to change over time. Like I think Alex said there about human history, we still haven't had a good governance system anywhere. There really hasn't been one that has worked over a long period of time. So I think it's going to be an evolution. What comes in now, it could be very different in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years time. And hopefully we're all still here, and it will be the governance system that will be able to drive where Cardano goes in that time. There's other things on the chain I'd like to see lots of focus going into, but maybe we need governance before them, like the technical side of things. There's lots of areas I think needs focus, but maybe that's where governance comes in, that it can push focus on them. And what Patrick said about funding for different projects and different areas and stuff like that, taking out of the treasury, governance will enable the community to push that funding hopefully to areas that they feel is needed.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big one. That's a massive one. And we could talk all night how that treasury could be used in much more beneficial ways. But I don't want to keep you guys here all night. I think we're there, Paul. So if you want to just go through any comments, then I think we've covered most of what we wanted to cover.
This one here, you can already do a whole show on this one as well. Be careful decoupling from Charles, lose your founder and lose your visionary that shepherds Cardano forward. For me, I think I don't think Charles will be going anywhere, but Charles has said himself that him stepping back and not being the head that decides where things go to a degree is a good thing. I think it wasn't the summit last year, it was the one before where he said that you could start to see it coming in. And I think that's a good thing. No blockchain should have one figure that decides where it goes. Charles will always have a voice within Cardano, and there's a lot of people who will always respect his voice. I will always respect where his views think the chain should go. What I have liked to see over the last few months is people do have different opinions, and he has been open to having discussions online. There's been lots of Twitter spaces with different people coming out and being able to talk about these. And I think his input is very valid to have there. I wouldn't like to see him going, but I think it's good for the future of Cardano to have not just one voice at the top, and even from the outside, that people don't see that Cardano is Charles and that Cardano is a lot more. Cardano obviously wouldn't be where it is without Charles, but there's a lot more to Cardano now as well. What
yeah, I agree. There could be new visionaries, and there could be other people out there even with broader ideas, you never know who could come along, especially with what you guys touched on, the treasury being open to use for other things.
Yeah. Anyone else that has questions, we will try and wrap it up maybe in the next 5 minutes. So any questions, fire them in. Patrick, anything you feel we haven't covered here or want to bring up?
I think we covered a lot. Yeah, it's a very interesting time. I'm very excited for this whole thing to play out, and I hope we can get it very soon as well. Like I don't want to wait another like 2 years for this. So
yeah. Yeah, appreciate your time and conversation. I learned lots of the governance proposal and even talking out loud on different opinions I have on it. I realized when I say them out, oh, maybe that's not the right way to go. So I appreciate the conversation, and just on this one as well. Yeah, you can have multiple visionaries within one group as well. We're used to having big, I suppose, entities in the world where you have one founder is driving the main vision, or from the outside it looks like there's one founder driving the vision, but generally there's a lot of people under that push the ideas to the top. But what we want in decentralization is that it doesn't have to all funnel up to one person at the top to get the vision out there, that you can have hundreds of people there all in around the top in a decentralized network that can help push that vision out there. So I'll go through these. Paddy, any closing thoughts?
I'm just thinking of my my DRep election slogan. I need to
make Cardano great again.
Yeah.
Or is that the boring one?
That will be, someone will pick that. Whoever gets that one first could get a good lot of people. So I'm gonna have to think of something original. It's going to be an interesting time. I'm joking. I don't know if I could have the pressure of that, but we'll see. Who knows? Be involved anyways, and I hope everybody is involved. That's what we want, isn't it? I have nothing else to go over, Paul. I've covered most.
I've got to be the Angela Merkel of Cardano. We can do it. How does she do the thing?
Yeah.
Hey Gary,
that's
good to have you.
Very funny. Sorry.
So I don't think there's any other questions. Thanks to everyone that was here. There's a few names there that have been here from the very start. Alex asked loads of questions, had loads of impact or input into the call. Really do appreciate that. Hopefully it helps bring out other conversations that we wouldn't have even thought about, or get different opinions, because like we don't want one figurehead deciding where everything goes. We're giving our opinions here, and it's always good to get the other side of the conversation on that as well. So appreciate everyone that gets involved in these. Every Wednesday night we're here, generally try and do different topics. The first few weeks it was all latest Cardano news. This was last week was NFTs, this week governance. We might look at the markets and stuff like that next week. But if there's topics people want to see us focus on, or people you want to see us bring on, then make sure and let us know. Patrick, you're more than welcome to come back another week as well. Really appreciate your inputs in general on this and everything that's going on. So thanks for your time.
Yeah. Do come back, and you don't have to come back under the guise of governance. I know you're massive in the NFT area with MMaker and stuff, and everybody knows you from that. So it's good to get the side that the governance side. So yeah, we'll come back on again, and we get the NFT scene. We had Thor on last week as our first NFT sort of style one. So yeah, I'll have to set something up for the future on the whole NFTs.
For sure, yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure to talk to you, even without Rick. But yeah, next time we'll have him on too.
We'll hold him to it for ditching us.
We'll definitely have to get Rick on again soon. Anyone who's new, do subscribe, give the video a like, share it out if others can benefit from this as well. I think it was very varied today, so I don't know if I'll get timestamps into it, but I'll watch it back in the morning and see what I can do. Thanks everyone watching. Paddy, thanks as usual for being here, and we're under the hour and a half, which is our hard cutoff every week. So thanks guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.